Soft skills are always important, but without soft skills in big companies, you will really, really struggle. You have probably close to 2,000 opportunities a year to meet new people, to interact with different people that you'd never met before. Build these relationships today, and they will be worth the weight in gold when you need them down the line. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Abhishek Kumar in the studio with us. Abhishek did my career unblocking mini course. Abhishek, did you actually do the whole mini course? Did you get a chance to do all the exercises?
Yeah, I have gone through all the material, all the videos, and yeah, it is absolutely it is helpful. And some of the things maybe at a small level I've started doing, the interacting with stakeholders, understanding their part. That is something that I have incorporated. And like before working on any request, now I just take a minute, like, and step back and ask them, what is it that it would help you?
That's great. I'm really happy to hear that. This is awesome. This is great. So the background context for this conversation, for those who don't know, exclusively for people who have done my career and blocking mini course, I've offered a couple of free mentoring sessions that will be recorded and uploaded to social media. Abhishek reached out. He had a couple of very interesting questions and things he wanted to discuss. So, Abhishek, without further ado, maybe we can hand it over to you. You can do a quick introduction. Just tell everyone who you are, where are you right now, what do you do, and and let's jump into your questions.
Sure, Shahad. So, hi everyone. I'm Abhishek. I'm currently based out of India. I studied electronics and telecommunication engineering, but right after my college, I joined analytics. I joined an analytics consulting firm. Then I moved to a company called Browser Stack, which is like a testing platform. And it's been almost about a year. Yeah, this is a little bit about me.
So, how many years of experience have you got in total?
About 6 years of experience.
Brilliant. So, what do you want to talk about?
So first thing, Shah, I just wanted to understand. I think it was somewhere around 2 years back when this analytics engineer opening in Airbnb got me curious, and I sort of what I've understood is a role that sit between a data engineer and data analyst. So I have been slightly inclined toward that, but it's also I feel like a very niche sort of expertise, right? And very few, only big tech companies I've observed mostly like that. So I wanted to understand like how should I think about going into that?
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, analytics engineering is something that picked up quite a lot in the recent years. I think one of the contributors to that was basically DBT coming out and platforms like DBT. So, platforms that enable people who are much less technical to build their own data models and build their own pipelines. If you think about the world before DBT, right, and how complicated that was, or what was the skill set that was required of somebody who wants to build a pipeline, it was actually not something that analysts and end users could do, and only data engineers could do that, or more technical operators. So it created this new niche in the market where people who are predominantly analysts can actually build their own data sets that were always missing. So that was a big change in how companies operated. And then more and more, they realized that, okay, we can bring data engineers to build a platform, to build the data warehouse. We can model the data and then let people do the final mile and build their own data sets for their own sort of analysis. And this is what analytics engineers do. So, as you said correctly, these people are kind of a hybrid between data engineers and analysts, and they kind of do 50-50, right? So they do the analysis, their outcome is analysis. It's really important because you're still an analyst, but you have the capability of building your own data artifacts and your own data sets for yourself.
Okay. 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 So if I'm more inclined toward the technical part, would this be a good path or
So
like
are you currently an analyst?
yeah,
You're an analyst, but you enjoy the technical part more. Is that
right.
right?
Yes.
It really depends on what is it that you want to do and where you feel your strengths are. But if what you really enjoy is the technical work, then why not be a data engineer, right? If you have the option to do that. If you don't have the option right now, then becoming an analytics engineer can be a good stepping stone in the right direction because you can still learn a lot of the technical skills. It's not 100%, but you can still learn good technical skills and maybe make the transition easier down the line.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. That helps. That helps. That
What
helps.
else do you want to talk about? What other questions do
Yes.
you have?
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I second is around I think the current role that I'm in, this company as a business, they are doing well. The analytics team is very new, so few things I've tried to implement in our team, like building those fact tables, dimension tables, bringing star schema. How can we build it well, and that would serve us for next 2 3 years, in coming 2 3 years.
Got it. Um, so in terms of foundations, I think that it's about having, reliable data, fast, accurate, high quality. These are things that are going to be important. Then I think that modeling the data correctly is the most important thing. So if your data is not modeled correctly, you're going to have to work very, very hard to get insights and value out of that. Whereas if you have good data models that represent the business, then extracting the value is going to be so much easier. You can think about how you're going to expose the data to consumers, so data consumption tools, and think about who are your consumers in the business and who do you want to use the data and how do you want them to use it. Okay, this is really important. Do you want data to be pulled, like they have to get into a dashboard, for example, and get the insight? Do you want it to be pushed, like data being sent automatically to them in the form of alerts or automated insights? Do you want them to be able to build their own dashboards? All of these things you can think about, and how do you want the data to be consumed. I would think about data literacy at early stages and basically try to identify who are the people in the business that I think get it. They are more data savvy, they care about data, they ask the right questions, they want to see numbers, they want to see data, and embrace them and try to work with them, see how can you build things for them and how can you help them get the value. All of that being said, I think the technical aspects of the job are important, but what's most important is what is the data that you want to surface to your users and how and when do you want them to consume that and how do you make sure that happens. Okay, because a lot of analytics teams, they focus on just building, and they try to build as many tools and foundations as they can, but in the end of the day nobody is using what they're building or very few people are using. So between building really strong foundations that nobody uses to building weaker foundations, so to speak, but they're actually using it, I prefer adoption 100%. So, how do you increase adoption from day one? How do you make sure that people use the data that you provide? How do you build trust and make sure that your data is trustworthy and that people are confident asking questions and are confident interacting with data and believe the numbers that they see and that sort of stuff. I think that's going to be the most important. How big is the company right now?
uh, Under 2,000 people.
Yeah, so finding your champions in the different departments is going to make a big difference, right? Because 2,000 people is a lot. Unfortunately, you're just one person. Your team is a team. You said about 10 people, right? So it's one analytics person per 200 employees. That's the ratio you're operating with. There's no chance that one person can cover 200 employees, right? So what you really want is to see who are my champions in the different departments that if I teach them, if I train them, if I give them the tools, if I educate and give them foundations, they would be able to spread the word and pass it on to people around them.
Yeah, I think I remember you sharing it in one of the videos and letters as well, that people who are really already have an inclination to use data in their processes, sort of working with them more closely. So that's what you are saying. And and yeah.
Exactly. And these people are your best friends. I mean, you should treat them as part of your team or as an extension of your team. You may want to have a regular standing meeting with them. You want to educate and teach them. You want to, do whatever you can to make them successful because when they're successful, they make you successful.
Okay. Okay. And Shah, I remember your advice on interacting with people in every meal or coffee break and all of those things. And that's a great advice. I was just thinking, like, in sort of this remote setup, how do I ensure that I'm able to have those interactions?
Yeah, so remote makes it more difficult, but not impossible. So, first of all, some companies are remote, but people are still in the same area, right? So, if you have people who live around you or within an hour to you, maybe you can organize a meetup. Sometimes you can tell your manager, I want to invite people to do a meetup somewhere and the company should be happy to support that. So that's number one. If not, you can do virtual coffee meetings and virtual coffee chats, right? So you may not be able to have lunch with somebody, but you can get on a meeting at at noon and have lunch together and just have a friendly chat. It's not the same, but it's good enough, right? And it's better than not doing it. Same thing about afternoon coffee. You can organize office hours and just say, hey, between this hour and this hour, I'm going to be sitting with my Zoom open or Google Meet or whatever you use. I'm going to be online in this meeting. Anyone who wants to ask data questions, please join and ask us questions. Bring your own coffee. It's a friendly environment, and we'll just talk about what data do you need. We'll work together. We'll help you. So this kind of office hours can really, create a welcoming environment for people to come. Every team has its own team meetings, right? So if you speak with managers, you can just say, okay, so if you go to a manager of the sales team and say, okay, we've built a sales dashboard. Can I join your team meeting, your next team meeting, for 15 minutes just to give a demo? And you join their meeting and you show a quick demo and you say, anyone who's interested, please join our office hours, or please follow up with me and I'll show you more. I'll teach you how to use it, and that sort of stuff. So you have to just be proactive. Communication, email communication, Slack, whatever tools you have. You can create a channel for data. Anyone who has questions about data, please join us. And once a week or once every other week, you can send data updates. Say, here are the top 2 or 3 things you need to know about data this week. These are things that we've built. These are things that we're working on. So you kind of give people the opportunity to reach out to you because they know that you work on something they care about.
Okay. Okay. Understood. And in terms of the like things that we should keep in mind while building like the foundations, one of the things you mentioned, which would be very critical, is the data modeling aspect. And I think you had also highlighted this in one of your LinkedIn posts. Like either you see people using very complex schemas, or it's just like one big table sort of method, right? We have been trying to sort of like build that star schema sort of model, building fact tables and dimension tables. So that's how I've been thinking, like each business process, build a fact table and then those dimension tables sort of come into it. That transitioning from for the team from that one big table to those modular pieces that we can stitch together later. I think I have found that little challenging to do because everybody is just comfortable with this approach. Is that a right approach? And if it is, then how do I like help our team to see value in that, or transition from that one big table modeling to more of this modern architecture sort of things?
So when I talk about data modeling, what I mean by that is your raw data is usually pretty much useless, right? Because you have raw data that's coming from a platform or for a system, and that raw data describes how the system works internally. Whereas the business users on the other side, what they want to see is something completely different, right? So if we take Instagram, for example, right? You open Instagram, an event is created saying user opened the application. So, you load your feed, you scroll, scroll, scroll. So events are created, event. Then I dwell on a post for 5 seconds, events is created. I like the post, event is created. I scroll down, I scroll down, I scroll down. So more events are created. Then I make a comment on another post and then I exit the app, right? So these are the events that we captured. These events are useless, right? Because they don't describe what the business cares about. What the business cares about is how many active users do we have on the system? How many users are creators? There's no event that says you're a creator. Creator is a definition. If you had, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but if you had 5 posts in the last 90 days, then you're a creator. If you go and talk to platform people, they may not know what a creator is, so to speak, but when you go and talk to the business will talk only about those things because that's what they care about. So there is a gap between what the raw data that you have and the data that exists in your platform or coming from your source to the way the business wants to talk about it, to describe it, to measure it, and so on. Data modeling for me is the process of taking this raw data, this useless data, and transforming it and making it useful for the business, right? So if you want to model the data, the first thing you need to do is to understand what is the data that we have. Okay, map out all the different sources you have. Then you start on the other side and you go to the business and you say, okay, let's describe the business. So they basically explain what, what the business looks like from their perspective. And then you need to look at, okay, this is the data that we have. This is what we want to have. This is what we want to be able to show, to measure, to describe. Where are the gaps? And how do I bridge the gaps by building data pipelines? So, for example, creators, it's something the business talks about. They don't have a definition for that because it's just a collection of many, many, many events. So you just build a pipeline that takes all these events and transform that and create a dim all creator stable or whatever. This is how you model the data to match what the business wants. As an advisor, I worked with a client, and when I started working with them, I noticed two interesting things. One is the company was selling different products. They had thousands of products in their catalog. And a product could be one of four things, right? It could be a physical hardware device. It could be a platform that they sell. It could be, a piece of software they sell on top of that platform, or it could be a bundle. So they had four different types of products. But when I looked at the data warehouse, there was no product stable, and that was a gap, right? So they keep talking about products, and they have four different definitions for what a product is. They keep mixing and matching them, and they keep talking about them interchangeably as if it's the same thing, but it's not, and it's nowhere to be found in the data warehouse because they never bothered actually taking a step back and defining what is a product for us. So that's one thing I noticed. And the second thing I noticed is they didn't have a customers table, which customer is one of the most, that was strange, right? Because a customer is one of the most important entity of every company, right? Every company has customers, right? They didn't have that. And when I met with other PMs, so I asked them, what is your definition of a customer? And I spoke with about four different product managers, and I got four different definitions, which means that they internally are not even aligned of what a customer is. Because they're not aligned, of course, you cannot model that. It's impossible, right? And they had different definitions of what a customer is, what is an active customer. So the first thing I had to do is get them to agree on that. So I got a bunch of people that I knew can are decision makers in the same meeting, and I said, okay, we have a few decisions to make. We need to decide what is a customer for you. We need to come up with one definition. We need to decide what is a product and how do we represent that. Then we want to build these tables. And as we went through these exercises, things became clearer. It was also becoming clear why they disagree and why different people have different definitions. Like we could figure it out for the first time. For me, that's the process of data modeling. It's not just facts and dimensions or one big table versus smaller tables. This is the mechanics of how you do it. But the beginning is how do you take the data sources you have? How do you take the business definitions and you match them together?
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So this is facts and dimensions are more to think of how we do it. But what you are saying, basically, what I've understood is that I need to be able to map the raw data that the system or the application is producing with what the business is at the end of the day want to look at. Or
Exactly. And I think that to go back to your first question, should I have, a star schema or should I have one big table? I think you should have both, right? So, in the beginning, you want to map those basic entities, all the dimensions, all the facts, and you want to build them. But then for data consumption, you don't want people running queries, joining 5, 6, 7 different tables every single time, right? So this is where you create, if you know medallion architecture, part of the idea is you have bronze layer, silver layer, gold layer. Gold layer is kind of the data consumption layer. And in this layer, you have aggregated tables that were created for the purpose of data consumption. So all the joins were done for you, all the aggregations were done for you, and the data is very, very digested and ready to be consumed.
okay, with that, okay, I have not heard about this, but I will read about it.
Yeah, just read about medallion architecture. The concept is very simple. Like you organize your data in three layers. So you have bronze layer, and bronze layer is basically your data sources, data coming in and going through cleansing and basic validations and so on, and that's like your pretty much your raw data. And then you have your silver layer, which is the data model layer. You basically take that data, you model it, and you create a structure that mimics what the business wants. And then the gold layer is the layer for data consumption, where what you actually want to do is to eliminate the need for people to do a lot of joins and aggregations and all of that. And you don't want them to be using data coming from many tables. You want to combine it for them. They lose some flexibility because the data is already filtered, it's already aggregated, it's already structured in a certain way. But at the same time, they can make less mistakes, and it's easier to consume.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
And going back to your first question on analytics engineers, this is often what analytics engineers would do. In many cases, the data engineer would be responsible for the bronze layer and for the silver layer, whereas the analytics engineers can build their own gold layer, which is basically tables for final consumption. So they would filter, aggregate, join, and organize the data in a way that is really ready for consumption.
That helps. I think I'll go back and think about this.
And if you want to learn about data modeling, you should definitely follow Joe Reese. If you're not following already, he talks a lot about data modeling. He's got some training on that. He's got books. He's got another book coming out soon. He's got his Substack. So there's a lot of good material coming out of him specifically on that topic.
Okay. I had another question, I think, which was not there in that. Excuse me.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So you have worked in like smaller companies, started sort of scaling up, and then big tech like Meta. As an individual, when someone is thinking to choose between two, what would help us choose like which is a right fit for them?
Good question. I think that ambiguity exists everywhere. You have ambiguity in big tech, you have ambiguity in startups. Priorities can change everywhere. Startups tend to be a little bit more chaotic. You can work on one thing now, different thing the next day. Job security is also something that can change. I mean, startups used to offer less job security, but now with layoffs and everything, I think that also in big tech, I mean, you have much more job security, because I don't think Google or Amazon are going to go anywhere, in the next 5 years. It's hard to imagine that, but they go through a lot of changes and restructuring, so jobs could be eliminated. That's another thing to consider. I think that working in a big organization means that, by nature, your role is a lot smaller. Before I joined Meta, I worked in a startup. I was head of data. I was responsible for all of the company's data, right? But the business was very, very small, and the complexity of the business was much, much, much smaller. Then I joined Meta, and I was the data engineering manager for a small portfolio of products within ads and business platforms. So just 4 or 5 or 6 different products, and the complexity of those products was insane. So in a way, your role is in terms of scope is smaller, because I'm no longer head of data for all of Meta. I don't deal with sales, with finance, with customer success, with all of that. I'm specifically working on a small selection of products, but these products, their impact and their the scope is insane, and it's probably bigger than anything I've ever had before. So that's number one. The second thing, bigger companies have more people, and more people means more coordination, more influence, more communication, more processes, more structure. Like, it's much more involved. So what I'm trying to say is soft skills are always important, but without soft skills in big companies, you will really, really struggle. In startups, usually it's easier to progress if you can just build things and you communicate with 3 or 4 people, and you just do your thing and that's it. In a big company, if you don't have the soft skills, if you're not a good communicator, you're not a good collaborator, you don't know how to work with in a team, in a group, how to influence, you will struggle. So that's another difference. And the last one is that, or last one I'll mention, is that roles in smaller companies tend to be more fluid, right? They're more flexible. So you can be a data engineer, but if we have to design an experiment right now and we don't have a data scientist, you will do that because your job is closest to that. And if the software engineer who is responsible for logging the data is out, and somebody needs to make a fix quickly, then you can do that, right? So you can do a software engineer job. So you can basically do everything, Whereas in bigger company, usually the boundaries between roles are clearer. So if you're a data engineer, then you're not going to do these things. You're not going to do these things. That's your job. So it's much more specialized. At the same time, I mean, you learn how to be a good data engineer. You get good foundations. There's good infrastructure in place, good tools. The company's trying to make you more productive, so they will invest in tools and infrastructure and things that will make you more productive. It's really hard to say, to be honest. I think in the end of the day, everybody should try both and see what works for them at some point in their career.
Okay, understood. Yeah, in terms, I think probably maybe last question also, like how can I continue to just upskill in terms of technical stuff? So one thing is like maybe reading books and what doing some courses online and all of those things. But the other part is like interacting with people who are doing similar stuff.
That's an excellent question. So the thing is, when you work in a company, you're essentially in a bubble, right? You're surrounded by a small set of people that you learn from. You all work kind of in the same way, using kind of the same tools. And it's very hard to get out of it. It's very hard to see what's beyond that. So, what I would say is a few things. Number one, reading. There's a lot of really awesome content. LinkedIn is good for that. Find a few people that you can follow that you get good insights from. YouTube is another good source for that. Substack is another good source for that. Medium, all of these things are good. The second thing is communities. Find your communities. So for data engineering, there's a community called Data Engineer Things by Shinran Weibel. She created that. It's about 7 or 8,000 data engineers. You can interact with other people. You can ask questions. People are quite responsive. So it's a great way to get out of your bubble, out of your box, and try and interact with other people. There's another great community called Data Talks Club. So look, Data Engineer Things, Data Talks Club, they have Slack channels, they have newsletters. You just sign up and you get a lot of value from that. The next thing I would say is go to meetups and conferences. You can, by the way, go to meetup.com and look for meetups in your area, specifically in your field. Just interact with people who do a similar job in another company and talk to them about the work, learn what is it that they do, what kind of projects they do, what kind of ideas they're working on, as much as they're happy to share. And that will give you a lot of ideas, both in terms of what to do and also how to approach this and how to do it. You will have one or two speakers every meetup coming, presenting the work, and then just networking and mingling and, some beers and pizza. So that's a really good format of just interacting with other people. And then you also have the big conferences, right? So Databricks conference, Snowflake conference, there's Big Data London, there's Data Week in Finland, there's one in Texas. So there's a lot of big conferences. Sometimes your company would be willing to pay for that. And sometimes 1 or 2 days in a conference can make a big difference for you in terms of your knowledge and ability to learn. So it's basically investing in yourself. And the last thing I'll say is getting a mentor. So there are a lot of experienced people out there who are happy to share their knowledge. Mentoring is essentially you looking for somebody who is really good at something that you're not, and they're willing to help and teach you. There are a lot of platforms like Topmate and Meander and a bunch of other mentoring platforms where you can just sign up and you can say, I'm looking for a mentor who can teach me data modeling. Some of them will be free, some of them will be paid. But again, it's another way for you to get an external perspective and somebody who's not working in your company doing your job and can give you, can teach you how things are done in different places.
Awesome, awesome. Something that you said in one of the videos that stuck with me was that a lot of the opportunities that came your way was from relationship and like relationship that you have developed over the years with people and all of those things. So you want to maybe share some story or maybe help me kind of get out of that mindset. Okay, no, it's not just about technical thing, but it's about the relationship and the people that we work with.
So you were looking for an example?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do I start? I mean, the way I got my job at PayPal, I didn't know that PayPal even had the offices where I was. And then I spoke with a friend of mine and he said, oh, you should definitely talk to this manager at PayPal. I'm pretty sure he's hiring and they're looking for people like you. And he's a friend of mine. So let me make an introduction, right? That's how I got my job at PayPal. So I was introduced to, I did a couple of interviews. They liked me and they said, let's do it. Please join us. The way I got my job at Meta, a friend of mine said, let me connect you with the guy who is hiring right now in London for data engineering. You just speak with him and let's see what comes out of it. I don't think I've applied to a job in more than 15 years, probably. Even now, when I'm an advisor, I don't just go around knock on people's doors and say, here I am, take my services. That's not how I operate. I spend my time networking, talking to people, helping them, doing my LinkedIn game, doing my YouTube game. I'm just out there. I spend most of my time networking, and then people naturally come out of that. So people would come to me and say, "Oh, I really think you should talk to my friend right now in this company. They need someone exactly like you, and I really think you should speak with them and let me make an introduction." It's all about networking and building relationships and connecting with people. The best example for that, by the way, was a product director I worked with at Meta. And he basically told me, Shahar, when I left my previous job, I was very lucky because, we sold the company and I had some funds, I had some money. So I wasn't stressed too much about the money and about work. And I said, I'm not looking for a job, I'm looking for inspiration. So I'm just going to go and talk to interesting people all day long, and then I'll see what comes out of it. Right. And he said at some point, I just spoke to a person about his company. He was looking for a product director just like me, and we had a good connection, and he said, I need you to come and work with us, and it just happened.
Okay. Interesting, interesting. So, lot of you are saying, lot of the career progression for you also have come out of those relationships.
Exactly. Let me give you another example, right? Let's say that you have a job right now, you're happy where you are, but your next job you want to work for British Airways. I'll give you two scenarios. Let me know which one you're going to be more likely to get the job. Let's say that you're going to leave your job in 2 years from now. So, scenario one, you wait 2 years, then you apply to a job at British Airways. You just go to the website, you see the jobs, you apply to the job. The second scenario is, you still have 2 years until you leave your job, you're happy where you are, but you go on LinkedIn, you connect with all the recruiters and all the managers, data managers in British Airways, and some of them are active on LinkedIn. So you start commenting on their posts, and they recognize your name, and maybe they conduct some events every once in a while. So you go and you actually attend those events. Recruiters post jobs all the time, so you just interact with their posts. And so after 2 years, when you decide to leave your job, you message the recruiter directly, send them a direct message on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I'm about to leave my job. British Airways is my favorite company. I really want to try and work for you guys. What roles openings do you have? Which one you're going to be more likely to succeed?"
Yeah. Copy second one, much more get.
And the thing is, the first one, you're going to be very lucky if you even get a response from them when you apply, or even when you get to the interview stage. The competition is going to be fierce, right? Now, you don't know that you want to work for British Airways in 2 years. You don't actually know where you will work, right? This is why you have to do all this networking now, not just with one company, but with all of them. So you try to meet as many people as you can. How many meals do you have every day? So you have breakfast, lunch, dinner. You also have maybe one or two coffee or tea breaks, right? So that's 5 breaks a day. And if you spend this time, just 30 minutes, right? Have breakfast with someone, have lunch with someone, dinner with someone. I mean, spend time with your family, obviously, but just to show you that you have close to 2,000 opportunities a year to meet new people, to interact with different people that you'd never met before. Build these relationships today, and they will be worth the weight in gold when you need them down the line. It can be 5 years from now, it can be 10 years from now, it can be 15 years from now, but at some point, these relationships will pay dividends.
Yep, Shar, it was yes, it was awesome interacting with you. This has been a great interaction for me, but so much learning and I'll continue to follow your content. Thank you for taking the effort to put those things out. It really helps someone like me who's still young in the career. And yeah,
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining. Thanks everyone else for joining. If you're watching us on social media, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. And also, if you don't want to miss out on more content like this. And Abhishek, thank you so much again